There's a new dating app out there. Have you heard that? There's a new dating app where you can try to find someone compatible by giving a sample of your DNA. Yeah, which is weird, because I thought exchanging DNA was supposed to happen at the end of the date. That was more my...
You have probably laughed at Conan O'Brien joke without realizing it was really a warning sign. Because underneath the red hair and the string dance is actually a guy who built his entire career on getting joke hit before you could hurt him first. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what happened the night he lost everything and why he never really recovered from it in the way you could never expect. If you watched the Tom Holland's video, you already know how this works. We are not just telling you what happened to someone, we are showing you the psychological running underneath it. Live in real time. Conan O'Brien is next, and weirdly, his story rhymes with Tom's more than you would. Conan didn't stumble into comedy, he was groomed for it by his own brain. Conan graduated magna cum laude from Harvard and became president of the Harvard Lampoon, the most comedy pipeline in the country. By his mid-20s, he was writing for Saturday Night Live and then The Simpsons, two jobs thousands of comedy writers would trade a limb for. But behind closed doors, Conan has said he never felt like the funny one in the room. Just the guy who worked harder than everyone else to keep up. The guy everyone assumed was a natural was actually terrified of being exposed as fraud. Ever worked twice in a heart just to feel like you belong to somewhere you were already the most qualified person in the room? That's not humility, that's fear of wearing nice suit. That fear didn't go away with the success, it just followed him into bigger stage. Here's where it gets strange. Conan got the biggest opportunity of his life for something he'd never actually done. In 1993, NBC handed Conan O'Brien, a writer with almost zero on-camera experience, the late-night takes after David Letterman left. Critics tore him apart in 1 year. Rolling Stone literally ran a piece asking if it'd be fired by the weekend. Most people would have folded. Conan kept going harder into the weird, self-mocking, I know this disaster too energy. That desperate coping strategy, joking about his own failure before critics could become his signature style, his comedy voice was born out of public humiliation. Think about that for a second. The thing millions of people loved him for originally a survival tactic. What you do when you are actually getting torn apart in real life. This is where the story turns from underdog wins into something lot dark. In 2009, Conan finally took over The Tonight Show, the seat once held by his hero Johnny Carson. Less than 8 months later, NBC tried to push the show back the 30 minutes to make room for Jay Leo, effectively demoting Conan on his own show. Conan refused. He walked away from a reported $32 million payout rather than accept a diminished version of a job he'd spent 17 years earning. He didn't just lost a show, he lost the exact validation he'd been chasing since Harvard Live in front of entire country. Comment below, would you have been taken the Conan money and stayed quiet or walked like Conan did? Here's where it gets worse before it gets better. Most people process a professional collapse privately, Conan couldn't. Immediately after leaving NBC, Conan launched the legally prohibited from being a funny on television tour, a live comedy show performed while under the contract. He was, by his own admission, depressed, embarrassed, and unsure if his career was actually over. Instead of hiding, he stood on the stage every night and joked directly about the humiliation, turning the wood into material. This wasn't resilience, this is the inspirational poster sense. Psychologically, it's a textbook example of using humor as a defense mechanism to metabolize trauma in real time, in front of an audience because being alone with was worse. Have you ever joked about something that was actually still hurting you? That's not a being fine, that's exactly what Conan did. Now here's the part that explains basically everything else in this video. Conan has openly described himself as needy for laughs, someone who feels physically uncomfortable in silence. Longtime staff have said he'll rework a joke 5-6 times in mid-taping if it doesn't land exactly right, even when the audience is already laughing. That's not perfectionism for its own sake. Psychologists would call it the external validation loop, where self-worth gets outsourced to audience reaction instead of internal certainty. Tonight Show disaster wasn't just a career setback for someone like this, it was the validation machine getting switched off completely all at once. Be honest, do you know the feeling of needing someone else's reaction to know if you actually did well? That same wiring, just different stage. But that wasn't the end of story, it was the reset. After a rocky run on TBS, Conan pivoted to something nobody expected to be former network host. He stripped down podcast Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. No desk, no monologue, no rating pressure, just long unscripted conversation which became massive hit. Letting go of the format that had defined his identity for 20 years meant risking becoming irrelevant. Instead, removing the performance pressure is finally the real, less guarded version of Conan come through. The version audience responded even more. Sometimes losing the exact thing you built your own identity around is what finally lets you find out who you are without it. Does that track with anyone you've been through? So here's the through line. Conan spent decades using humor to prevent pain, chase approval, and survive public humiliation in real time. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's almost the exact same psychological pattern we broke down in Tom Holland's video. Someone using charm and self-deprecation to control how the world sees them before the world can decide on its own. If you haven't watched that one yet, go back, check it out next, because once you see this pattern, Conan, you are going to spot everything.